Welcome to Ink and Magic, a podcast where we read and discuss the writing craft, world building, and romance of paranormal and fantasy novels.
If you love books with bite, set in worlds of magic and mayhem, then you're in the right place. My name's Nikisha Shanae. I go by Ines.
And I'm Leslie. I write as Elle Penelope. And welcome to the show.
Hey, Leslie. Welcome back.
Hey, Inez. I'm really excited today. We have another celebrity guest.
So, Les, we have one of my favorite people on today, Angel Lawson, who is a USA Today bestseller as well as an international best-selling romance author of dark, angst-filled trauma fiction, like her co-written series, The Royals of Forsyth U, that she writes with her friend Samantha Rue. Angel lives with her family in Atlanta and has a lifelong obsession with creating fiction from reality, either with paint or words. And on a typical day, you can find her listening to true crime podcasts or binge watching documentaries about serial killers or cults. Angel.
Pretty much. That literally sums it up right there. I'm like, it's 9 o'clock. Who's watching Dateline?
So, trauma fiction?
Mm-hmm.
I'm scared already.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that we came up with that word. Sam started calling it traumance.
Traumance.
And then I saw maybe sort of associated with Colleen Hoover a more like trauma fiction. And again, I don't want to say Sam came up with it, but she was the first person that I heard.
Now that's interesting because I have been a Colleen Hoover fan since way before TikTok existed, since the very beginning. And I don't think of it really as trauma romance necessarily. I mean, it's very...
I feel like Colleen Hoover, and I read some of her older stuff. I don't read her newer things, but I feel like the readers don't know how to categorize her.
Oh.
Right.
I'm constantly seeing like, the first spicy book I read was, and everyone's like, she's not, this isn't spicy.
Oh, you sweet summer child.
You know,
right?
and so it feels like people are confused about what she writes, and it's probably because she just sort of writes her own.
Yes.
She kind of has created her own lane, maybe.
Yeah, she's her own genre, and she writes whatever she wants, which is what I really admire about her.
Yeah, so I think things just get tagged onto her name, or people just sort of found, you know what I mean, like where it reflects on them, because everyone seems to view her differently. Yeah. That's just sort of what I see in the reader groups, but not as a reader of hers, but what I see them talk about. There's always some scuttle where people are like, this isn't this, or you know, or they'll be like, should I let my 12-year-old read this? And everyone's like, wow, and then they kind of like go back. I don't know. That's just that's what I think. So anyway, I don't know. But that's where I think it is a tag on social media.
And when you say trauma romance, what do you mean by that?
Trauma romance means that everybody is carrying around a ton of trauma and the romance fixes it.
That's so interesting. Oh my, okay, because you know I write clean romance and I write wounded warriors, and the romance fixes it.
Yeah.
But our worlds are different.
They can be different. Everyone has different trauma. Like, I mean, a wounded military person would totally have their own trauma.
But yours have more scars from like murder, death, kill?
Yeah, they're basically like, okay, so basically, let's just do the Royals, right? Let's do the Royals of Forsyth U, which is our best-selling series. It is its own world. It's like its own universe. It's like a dash of soap opera, like teen soap opera, generational trauma, gothic insanity. Think VC Andrews. Okay. So you're sort of so you're basically kind of building a world that's like Riverdale plus General Hospital plus VC Andrews, and it's contemporary. All of those are contemporary settings, but they're all fictional settings. So weird things happen in if you ever watched Riverdale, like it's on this like alternate timeline. And General Hospital is on like an alternate timeline, or soap operas like that. You know, like everything's just like a little weird, and people's lifestyles are a little strange or over exaggerated, or maybe like not exactly. Like one thing they do on Riverdale is so weird. Like say they go to the hospital and the nurses are wearing like an old-timey nursing uniform. Like people don't wear those, but there they wear that. Or they may have a phone on the wall that's like a rotary, you know, like everything's a little bit off. And when I first started watching it, like I'm a huge Archie fan, I have a ton of comics, so I first started watching it, I was like, this is amazing because it's so subversive to like the comics. It takes all these elements and makes them different. It shifts them differently. And everything's just a little bit off kilter. It's not real. And then I was like, you know, I guess it's almost like it almost is like a comic. Like comics aren't real either. Like superheroes aren't real. It's an alternate universe. And you take something like Marvel, where we now have the metaverses, and we understand that it's not Earth. It's these
Earth 62 or whatever.
So I think our universe that we have created is essentially an alternate reality that has its own rules, and it's run by these damaged, evil villains that get away with whatever they want to get away with. And then this is really about their children, and they're all college age, and they're in this college, and you'll be like, well, why is this fraternity organized crime? Because it's in Forsyth, and that's how Forsyth operates. Their fraternities are really crime syndicates or whatever. That's what is going on. So everyone there is raised on trauma, they're built on trauma, they're bred on trauma, and then they inflict this on everyone else. And then our heroine is inserted in whatever way. She may be from one of these families, she may be sold into one of these families, she may be whatever, and then her job is to come in and suffer a lot of abuse until she finally helps these heroes redeem themselves and become better people in this universe.
That's
whatever
that's
that
a
means.
lot.
That is.
It is a lot. So when you're like, how do you build characters that your fans connect to? That's how.
But see, here's the interesting thing. So Leslie is a master world builder, but it seems to me like, Angel, you're pulling things that are real, that fans as readers, they love, and then that's how you're building your world. You're not building it as, let me look at how political systems work and let me design my own political system. You're pulling, oh, this is what people love about laws and rules, and breaking them, and
Right.
abiding by them. And that's where I'm like, how does she do that?
Yeah, so we were talking a little bit about fan fiction and fandom, and Sam and I both that's where we met many years ago, in a fandom. And there's some common things in really popular fandoms. And so when you're talking about your dark hero, in a fandom sense, they become super exaggerated. So your Spikes and your Edwards and your Dracos and your Angelus.
I know exactly who you're talking about as you just say these names.
And your Kylo Ren, like your dark heroes have very similar attributes, and they're very exaggerated, because when you're writing a fan fiction, you're already pulling them out of that original world that they were created in, into this alternate universe. it's altered because you're adjusting it to have a different outcome because you didn't like the one that you originally got. So you sit there and Sam and I sit there and we think, okay, what is it about the dark hero that we love? Like, what is the moment that you fall for Spike? And it might be a really evil moment, but maybe it's that evil moment where I can't come up with it right now, where he does something really bad. But Spike always has that weird pull where he wants acceptance. He just wants this acceptance. We know this from his whole history. Angelus didn't accept him when he was created. All he ever wanted was Angelus's approval.
That's so
and he spends millennia trying to get it. So all he's trying to do is get his approval.
He even marries Drusilla.
Yeah.
Who was in love with Angel.
Yeah. There's a great line in Angel season 5 when they're fighting over the chalice that'll have humanity or something. I don't know. They get to the chalice and it's Mountain Dew. But Spike says something like you are always oh God, I can't think of what it is. He's basically talking about how he was a man and Angelus is the one that turned him into a monster. And the vampirism isn't what turned him into a monster. Angel turns him into a monster. Because Angelus was truly evil before. You know how like a vampire's like mythology wise your nature, your hidden nature comes out. Well, Angelus was truly evil.
Is Angelus the same as Angel?
Angelus is the evil side of Angel when he doesn't have a soul.
Okay.
So, yeah, this is what I don't know. So these are your characters, these things. So, and that's what I'm talking about. You know why you love these people. You kind of love Angelus when he's really dark, and you really kind of love Spike when he's dark. But Spike also has the soft place. Angelus was forced to have a soul.
Yeah.
Spike sought to have a soul. And
now I want to go rewatch both of them. I do not have the time.
It's a lot. So there's a lot there. So those are your dark heroes, and you draw on those emotions. We draw on those emotions. So when Sam and I are trying to come up with like motivations and moments, it's not going to be like that, because that's not what we're writing. We're not writing vampires. We're not writing whatever. But we try to convey an emotion that we both understand from prior entertainment, like things that we both can relate to. So like, your Draco moment, Draco in fan fiction is a lot more interesting than Draco because he kind of gets the shaft in the books. But I can only imagine that Allie Hazelwood's books, because her books of the
Bride,
Love Hypothesis and all of that are
the contemporaries.
Yeah, and they're based on Star Wars fan fiction.
I had not heard that before.
Is Rilo
in her STEM books, her contemporary STEM books?
Yeah, those are all Adam Driver. They're all Adam Driver. They were all originally written. Yeah, yes, y'all. There are a lot of books out there that people are reading that originated from a place of fandom. And then this is why they are so popular, because you may not know that, and you may even read it and not know it.
Yeah.
But then when you do know it, you're like, oh, Adam Driver. It's like, oh.
That is, I'm thinking back. I've read several of her STEM books.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I mean, he didn't seem that villainous. I mean, there's like
he's not a villain. I think he's more Adam Driver than he is
than Kylo.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Interesting.
I think so. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
That is fascinating.
So that's where things get like weird too in fandom, because are you writing Edward Cullen, or are you writing Robert Pattinson? Like they do start to merge. They start to merge, and there'll be little things that, like, if Robert Pattinson wears X, Y, and Z, or wore X, Y, and Z at the time, those elements will seep into, if Kristen Stewart was wearing whatever clothing, it'll seep into the and Harry Styles, blah 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 blah. It goes, the list goes on and on. So yeah, these are yeah. This is sort of like how you can draw on existing fandom elements and build them inside your own. I mean, it takes a lot more than that. Like, it takes a lot of pieces. But if you're sitting there going, how do I write the next Harry Potter? What is it that people really want from
what are
Harry
those moments, and what are those emotions? It's almost like that becomes the plot points. That's
or what is the missing moment that you wanted more of?
That's why people write the fanfic. Like, I never got into fanfic, but I can imagine, you know, you wanted this to end a different way. So it's like, well, I can do better. I mean, I have taken inspiration like that and written stories from it. It's never actually been fanfic, but like, I really loved this thing, but I didn't, I wanted this character like Loki, you know, like I wanted to see before the TV show, like Loki's, you know, fall in love. So let me write a character that's like that, that gives me that experience that I didn't have in the movies, that I didn't get to watch, but with my characters in my world.
Yes, and I think that's how we, I mean, and it's not new. I mean, I think this is things we're, you know, think of all the movies inspired from Romeo and Juliet, you know, some like directly to the source, or, you know, with, I don't know, that are just vague.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
like very loosely.
Like all the things based off of, say, Taming of the Shrew. You have some that are historically, or you have some that are 10 Things I Hate About You, you know, but it's these things that people have always been connected to, which then of course all this goes back to your universal fantasies and your tropes and even cliches, you know, like these are all these little pieces that I had to really learn to embrace and not run away from. It's there's that thing of like, don't oh, you don't want to be a cliche, or you don't want to copy this, or you don't want to do whatever. But when you dig in and you dig in and you dig in, you're like, none of this is new. It's all about how I want to put my own twist on these emotions. And, you know, and Ez and I are just sitting here talking about, you know, Angel Money. And I obviously went to a deeper place than she did. And now she's going to go back and be like, oh my God, this is like a whole other level I wasn't paying attention to because I was watching this other thing, which is fair because there's a lot going on.
I'm usually watching the romance. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially like first time watching, a lot of times you don't see things because you're focused on like just what's coming next, or
you're just being entertained.
Yeah, you're just being entertained, or you're like, oh, what's this bad guy gonna do, when you've got this whole other side story going on, which again is sort of why, you know, Joss Whedon has had these successful things. He's really good at balancing these sub things and creating these very compelling side stories, which build that world up, which then gives people, you know, Supernatural would be the same way. There's so many side characters that you just really love and you want more of, or that are fan favorites, or kind of provide these different little places of happy fan love, you know. Like nobody knew Castiel was going to be that, I'm sure. I didn't watch it. I do watch it, and I started watching about season 6 or 7, but you know, you don't, sometimes people pop in and out on Supernatural, you don't know they're going to be a reoccurring character or not, you know, and what they're going to be. And then Castiel started a million fanfics because people love Dean and Castiel together. So that's a whole other thing.
That's interesting to me. So with fanfic, you have people either loving a moment so much that they just want more of it, or feeling that something is missing and then writing something new. And I know a lot of fanfic writers became authors, but here's what interests me. So as a former fanfic reader and or writer, you become an author. But now you've got reviews coming in on your stuff. You've got TikToks and Instagram posts coming in on what you're doing. Do you even read the reviews? Do you let the reviews affect you? Because you were a reader once that loved all this stuff and was taking the moments or filling in the moments.
Well, I think that it's definitely like you kind of always want that, like, this is a thing. You want to be able to, you would, as a creator, you want to create this thing, but it's not easy to do that, and I don't mind reviews so much. I don't really wallow around in Goodreads. We definitely have a few people who have made it like a sport, to
meaning they read your books and say mean things and
it's a sport. I mean, it's like, who can get a review up fast enough, who can say the most hostile things.
Oh wow.
It's like a whole trolley thing.
But they're buying and reading them, right? So
yeah, or some have been on our review team and have been removed from the review team because they're just not nice and refuse to really play by the rules, which is the common courtesies of don't write spoilers for a couple days, and you know what I mean. And no, it's honestly just sort of like, but this is a fan thing. It's their job. It is their job. There are people in communities where it's their job to be a troll. It is their life's work. It is what they do. They're the ones at the top of the Reddit post. They're the ones that first comment on a tweet by so-and-so. They want all the.
This person, Angel, needs to be sold into Forsyth and
and it's really strategic too. And so we have a couple. And so I think last that we did remove that one person. And I think she's got a little crew. And then I think a couple kind of like filled in, but they don't have quite the venom. Wow. So we'll kind of read it at first, just to, but we just discuss it amongst ourselves. And I do read my ARC readers because I am curious, that it's hitting, you do want to make sure it's hitting right and you're hitting these things that you hope they want, or if you were a hard miss on something. But I don't do general reviews like reading or whatever. I mean, if people take the time to make a TikTok and tag me, I'll watch it. And most of them are nice, so that's not a problem. And if they make an Instagram and tag me and all that, I'll share on that or on my story or whatever, and all that. So I don't mind it so much. We were just laughing. Did you see my post that I made in another group?
I did.
Somebody made a post and I'm scrolling through, and it's like in a reader group, and it's like, should I finish this book? And it was a poll. And it was like, should I finish this series? It's about our series. And it's like a poll with like, yes, keep going. It was 3 things. It was like, yes, keep going. No, I never read or like, I like whatever. And like, yeah, don't waste your time or whatever. And it was just sort of more surreal. I wasn't upset. I really wasn't upset. I was like, what is this? And then I did. And people, when I posted in this group of like, I'm trying to have a positive attitude about this. People are like, well, you should take that criticism. And I did read the criticism, and it was a little weird, and it was sort of nothing that I could really fix at this point. Like, this book has been out for 3 years. Kind of like I do. But it is weird, but it's this dual thing where you want people talking about your work. And if they're not talking about your work, then you're not maybe hitting in the right place. And so I don't mind making people mad. I hate it when people are just sort of intentionally taking things wrong just to be that way. That's whatever. But we do write really in-depth books. and this person said they thought it lagged. I think that's a weird complaint in a way, but I think that a lot of people like short books, and as you write a lot of short books, that's just what a lot of people like. They like short, they want super smutty, they don't want to let a deeper plot lines, you know, they want like maybe like a one base plot line to be resolved and over, and that is just not what this is. That is not what it is. It is a soap opera, and soap operas are on the air for a long time, and this is going to be on the air for a while. So
atta girl.
Yeah.
So as you craft the stories, I mean, are you taking into account reader feedback, or are you just, you know, you and your co-author really just originating the ideas yourself? Or is it just like, oh, the readers are saying they want this, let me change what I'm planning because I didn't realize they were going to expect XYZ? How much does that go into play?
So we have like a group for spoilers on Facebook. They can join after they finish reading each book. There's a new one for each book, and they go on there and they talk about all their theories and everything, because it is like it's got like mysteries and all this stuff going on. So they go on and they talk about that. There's a chat group, I think, in our Facebook group, and we have some PA type, you know, reader. They moderate that. I don't go in there at all. I will go into the spoiler occasionally, again, mostly right after it's released, because they're just mostly kind of engaging with their initial reactions. And then we have a Discord, and we can talk about all these different places, these different community places, and they talk about it there too. And I'll skim over that, and sometimes they'll have questions, and the readers are really great. They kind of do a lot of the heavy lifting with that. But if I see something that I can answer, I'll pop in and answer. But as to what you're saying, so we do have that input, is what I'm trying to say. We have that coming from a couple different places. We vaguely look at them. We try not to let it sway where we're going. Sometimes they're onto us. We just don't say anything. And our betas that know where things are going, they just don't say anything. So we don't answer yes or no, because that's a spoiler. And it could change. Like, not everything will change. And we don't change things up intentionally if someone's onto us. We had a whole talk the other day, which I will not go into specifics about, but the readers are sort of like thinking that they know. They're like, I think this is going to happen. Someone's going to die in this certain way. And it's something we have kind of alluded to, yet had not actually sort of, it was just, we leave a lot of threads. Some get pulled on and some don't. And I was like, oh, this keeps coming up, and I think this is what we should do. We just hadn't really talked about it. And I said, this is my idea. And Sam was like, we talked it over, and she's like, no, I think that's a great idea. So in a way, we're answering something they wanted answered, but it's not going to be the way they want it to be, because that's actually just not in what we have planned. But we will answer it in this other way. Does that make sense? So we know they want this sort of, so we'll tie it in, but we're not altering the story to fit it in the way they want it, because it's just not, that's not actually what is going, we do know that is not what is going to happen. So yeah.
So you're talking about your co-author a lot, and that fascinates me, that you are crafting this world and this fandom with another person. I know you've written your own books. Sam has written her own books, and together you guys have made something absolutely amazing. But I'd love for you to talk a bit more about that aspect of having a co-author build this with you. Like, do you guys disagree? And what happens if you do?
We do disagree, and we have, the first 3 books were pretty, so we wrote 3 to 4 books before we put this out.
Are you serious?
Yeah, we wrote like a standalone, semi-dark YA, like
okay,
prep school type bullyish thing. Not quite as dark. And it was kind of our practice ground. We kind of saw what was working and what wasn't working, and things we wanted to build on more. Sam had never written reverse harem, And I typically write reverse harem, but I was taking a little break. I literally was in a burnout mode, and I just sort of was through. I wrote this draft. I wrote this first book draft in like 4 weeks. It was like 80,000 words, and I was like, I need help making this a little grittier. And she's that person. And I said, do you want to work on this with me? And she said yes. So that kind of started it. So we were on this road. And we enjoyed it, and we enjoyed working together and all this stuff, but we wanted to kind of do something different. Like, we knew we wanted to push it farther, and we didn't feel comfortable pushing it inside this more upper young adult category. We wanted to move into like a college setting.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because it was popular. We did look at trends and what was marketable at the time, and we knew we kind of wanted to age up a little bit for some things. We wanted to make it darker. We wanted to make it darker than some of the things that were out, because that's just sort of like where our mindset connection is together on things. Is like, if you're going to have a bully, he's going to be a bully. You're not going to have a bully that you forgive tomorrow. You're going to have a bully that you figure out that is worse and worse and worse and worse to you until somebody breaks, and then somebody's house is set on fire. Like we're not playing here.
That. I want to circle back around to it, but keep going about you and Sam.
So anyway, we started working on it. We had no idea what was going to happen. We were both a little horrified to have our names on something so dark and crazy. It was very stressful. I mean, I have written 1 million books, and I was like, and I sent it to my regular beta reader at the time, and I was like, this might be too much. I don't know how you feel. Like, this might be too much. And she was like, I think this is going to be a killer. And I was like, okay. But it was weird. And so we didn't know what to expect. We were planning 3 books. We were not planning this whole universe at the time. But Sam is our designer. She's been my cover designer since the very, very beginning, since my first book. And she is really good at branding. And while I was getting better and better at writing, Sam was getting better and better at branding. And so even though she was writing some on the side, graphics were her focus, covers, things like that. So we kind of pushed these 2 things together, and she created the elements early that allowed us to build on. I mean, in a lot of ways, we could have done more because we didn't have the vision, but we had enough. And there's like nothing, we don't waste symbology or anything. Everything means something. And you never know what's going to be that thing that resonates with readers, and then they go get a tattoo from that thing. You just don't know. But what helps is if you put it in there, and then you put it in there again, and then you put it in there again, and it becomes a thing to, take something like Harry Potter. The phoenix is the symbol that starts off with, Dumbledore has this phoenix, but then the phoenix comes and saves Harry and the snake, with the snake. And then there's the Order of the Phoenix, and it goes on and it goes on and it goes on, and it means something to people. Take Supernatural, and you have all their symbology, where you even have things like, we all know what it means to put salt around your windowsills, or when there's cold air in the room, or that iron works on this but doesn't work on that. So there's just these little these symbols. You just have to keep bringing these symbols back in over and over again. Your town, really building up your community in your town, creating these locations. So like Forks, there's the diner, or the high school, or whatever, Bella's house, Bella's truck, like these things that just mean something to the reader, but you have to give them that thing to hold on to, and you don't know what it's going to be. You may think it's going to be something else, but really it's I don't know.
And then
yeah, and then you start rolling it in, and it's like, what kind of merchandise can you make from these things? Do you have something that can be made into a piece of jewelry? Do you have something that will make a fun sticker? Do you have an inside joke, an inside secret message between two readers that if they see each other on the street and they have a button, like say you have on your Deathly Hallows button, or your house. And I'll say that we have, so this series is going to be 15 books long. It's broken into sets of 3. Mm-hmm. So there's 1, 2, 3 lords, 4, 5, 6 dukes, 7, 8, 9 princes, and then barons, and then counts.
Wow.
And that wasn't exactly established. There's a couple like blips in our first book where we maybe have things like slightly in like the epilogue where like we'll be like, oh, he's dead or he's alive, and then later on they're dead. They're the opposite. And the readers are like, what? They'll go on the group and they'll be like, why does it say this? And our readers are like, they expanded the world, and so there's nothing we can, like they've asked us to just accept. Melanie Harlow is always like, don't ask me to do math.
Yeah.
If you want me to write next gen,
don't do math.
Don't make me do math on their ages. And it's fair. And so we do that too. We're like, don't make us do math. Don't make us count dates. If someone's pregnant, give us some leeway on, we try to keep it in there. But yeah, so that's the thing. The deeper they get, the more they want to know everything. They do point out those things, and you kind of just that's the stuff you have to really let go of. So when you're talking about, do you let go of reviews don't really bother me.
Right.
This bothers me, like consistency things that I'm like, ugh. So now we have an assistant who is writing our Bible.
Oh, wow.
Keeps track of everything. Today I like opened up the documents like character traits, and I could go down and pick out somebody's eye color or whatever.
That's the amazing thing about
because I'm writing bonus content for the Kickstarter. So I had to go back literally like to book 2 to pull out a scene to write an alternate perspective, and I had to get all my pieces sorted together. So it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. It's fun. It's super fun, but it's a lot. So I don't know if I answered your question about Sam or not. So we just like to talk about it. We like to talk. Brainstorming is our favorite thing. She's not quite to say like the business side of it. Like we like to talk about the writing structure or the business stuff, or like market or whatever. She's a little less into that. She likes to do her branding side of things, but a little bit less on the like learning is deeper. I don't know. She does it with me. She'll talk to me about it, but like she's not like listening to a lot of podcasts and things like that. So hers is a lot more just instinctive. I have to really work on it, I think. Yeah,
that makes sense. So said I wanted to put a pin in the bully love. How do you make a heroine fall in love with someone who treats her the way that your dukes and your counts and how do you make that happen?
Well, number 1, proximity is always key. Forced proximity. What works for us typically is a contract. 2 out of 3 groups so far have a contract that you cannot get out of, because remember, this is a world where we've created the rules, and you sign it, you're in. Usually the female character has something of her own that she's trying to accomplish. Someone else, she needs protection. She's trying to do something for a larger cause, I guess, as it goes on. or like in the second series, she doesn't really have a choice. She doesn't have a choice at all. She's sort of traded, you know, between the groups. So it's a forced scenario. There might be some slight, you didn't have to walk in the door, but the minute you walked in the door with whatever is like on your heels or whatever that motivation that got you into the door, you're kind of locked in. You've made that, they've made a decision. So sometimes we do like let them make that decision, although there are circumstances that are pushing them to it. But then it's not all but like the book 2, the series 2 is not a decision. Although at some point they do, that's a twist. That's a UF, Universal Fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
There is a point where they will give her the choice of leaving or staying, usually in book 2.
But even with
book 3, sorry, go ahead, Liz.
I was just going to say, even with the forced proximity, how do you make the emotions turn from someone is abusing you to you actually caring for them? Like, they're there. Okay, that's step 1.
I mean, like in ours, nobody likes them in the first. They don't even like each other half the time in the first book. The men are all also in a situation of forced proximity, and they, because of the way these groups are set up, there's 3 leaders in each group, and they are pretty much required to take on and I use the word female, it's gross, but this is their world. If they don't respect women, so they are required to take on this female, what we kind of call a house girl, and it's just part of their fraternity structure. And this girl is there for them to use at their whatever, but that doesn't mean they exactly want it either, or circumstances are the way that they want it, because these men are under the control of greater men. And so really what it comes down to, and it is, we discuss this in the books, the characters slowly start to realize that the people over them give them someone to take care of and to become attached to make them weaker. The women are there to make these 3 weaker to those above them. They want them distracted and satiated and involved in their own world, so that they don't think about taking out the people that are higher than them. And then once they all realize that, then they are all on the same page. They realize they're all being manipulated, male and female, against a greater evil. They all just have to figure out, like, she has to figure out that these 3 aren't her biggest enemy. And they have to realize that she means more to them than the whole of this thing. And they also sort of have to really bond this harem. You know, reverse harem has its own tropes and stuff that have to be reconciled. So they have to reconcile their own harem situation, and she has to reconcile that back. And then once they get reconciled, it's not a happy ending. They have to figure out how to get out from under the thumb of who's really running this whole show. And one topples, and then there's another one, because there's 5 of these groups. So then they're all interconnected. And so you toppling one doesn't mean anything. And the other thing is like, just because you toppled one doesn't mean that everyone is just happy. They might be happy in their house with one another, but they still are, you know, thugs and crime bosses. They have to still maintain their order and their positioning in their world to make sure that then they aren't become a target from one of these other people.
Wow.
It's very it's like a lot. It's so crazy. I don't even know how it happened. It's just happened. I don't know how it is. So it's hard when you're like, did you start this thinking this was going to happen? No, but the readers bought into it and they got invested, and then we got really invested, and everybody got really more and more invested, and now we're here. Yeah, it's weird. And they want to read the future ones. They're really excited. They're always excited about the future groups that we
because you've made this even bigger bad that everybody knows is there, and probably they want to see them fall.
Yeah. Yeah, oh yeah, the bad guys, the upper guys are awful. They are awful. Like, and you think one is bad, and then you're like, you unpeel it, and the next one is worse. And then you unpeel it, and the next one is worse. And you're like, oh my gosh, I thought this was a bad situation. And I thought that this guy for the first book was so terrible. And now you're like, I just kind of want him to be my daddy because he'll just take care of me. Yeah. Yeah.
So not only have you and Sam made this world, made these characters who readers are chomping at the bit for, you guys have also started kickstarting.
We started kickstarting.
And that's gone a little well for you, it seems.
It's gone well. It's gone well. We've done 2. We break them into the groups. And I wrote this out in my notes. Like, it's so weird because people are like, why did you decide to do a Kickstarter? And I'm always like, because people wanted book plates and we couldn't keep up with them.
Seriously.
And we were like, this is the best way we can get a solid number of book plates. And it's still, they just want more book plates. And so here's one thing that we did. So when the book did well, to begin with, this is like my fandom baseline of when I decided to start focusing on fandom or fans or readers, is because it wasn't a fandom to begin with. It was just a bunch of excited people that were talking about our book, and I could tell it was different. I could tell there was a different energy. And as someone who's been doing this for so long, I was panicked. I was like, how do I keep this energy? And what do we do if book 2 sucks? And what do we do if all these people that are so excited about it hate the second book? And then what if we blow it on the third book? I mean, I was like a ball of stress. I was very anxious. But we weren't really doing any ads. You know, AMS won't do ads on Reverse Harem or, you know, Shirtless Guys. And we weren't needing to really do any ads. The book was doing really well on its own organically at the time I didn't really get it. The readers were really pushing it on TikTok. I was on TikTok, not really paying attention, I guess. It was so early in book talk. It was 2020, like it was like 3 years ago, and like right now in 2021. And I was like, let's use our marketing money and thank our fans. So they were asking for book plates, and Sam and I didn't want to mail books back and forth to each other. So we just started, ordering book plates. We started with like 500, and Sam made some, bookmarks. And we didn't tell them, we just added them in, and we just said, who wants this? The first however many people can get up to 3. And they were signed up for in, very quickly. And then we did another one, and it was also very cool. Like they just kept wanting more and more and more. And, I had one friend who was like, well, why don't you just sell these in your shop? And I was like, because they just want more. I was like,
there's a great problem.
I'm like, it's not about the money. I'm like, I was like, the idea of opening up a spreadsheet every day and people wanting more, and then we have to sign them and ship them back and forth to each other. It's like another step. So we kind of started talking about like, maybe we could do a Patreon. Like, how do we manage this number of people that want these? And Sam had kind of started tinkering with a little bit of other graphics. Like, we do graphics for our like that you can share on social media, or we did a postcard with the announcement of the second book and sent those to everybody who had already received. We had their address that we had already sent a book place and stuff to, but it was just not working because people just wanted more. So we didn't feel like a Patreon would work for us. Like, the pressure of having to do something monthly and that kind of thing just did not feel like that would work, especially with us together. We work on different timelines. and that's something we've had to work out. And so basically Sam was like, let's just do the Kickstarter and I'll make special editions. She wanted to make special editions. She wanted to do the discrete covers. And then it just sort of rolled from there. So we did do it for our fans. You asked the question of did we do this for fans, or were we trying to grow our fandom? And the truth is that what it did, I think, is it locked in our fans. And then they became super fans. Mm-hmm. And then the super fans do the heavy lifting of finding new fans because they're so enthusiastic. Mm-hmm. So it's both. So my goal for 2 to 3 years now has been, how do we keep the reader we already have? Mm-hmm. It hasn't been, how do I find a new reader? It's been I do a little. I just started ads last year and we do some things, but really, really it's everything extra we do is how do we keep these fans and how do we keep them engaged? And so that's where we start the spoiler group. That's where we start the chat. That's where we have the Discord. We want them to the key behind all the fandoms that we've talked about today is they all have very strong communities. And we are building a community for the readers because that's what they really want, is they just want space to talk about the stuff that makes them happy. So if they want to talk about other books, go for it. They want to talk about other movies, that's great. They can talk about whatever they want to, as long as that movie's being a jerk. They can, we have a channel on our Discord where they can do buy, sell, trade of the special editions, or they can do other books. We have a place where they can post, NSFW artwork if they want to do that. We take a lot of this off of Facebook, because if you want to be in the buy, sell, trade, which we're not accountable for, that's in our thing, but instead of getting a bunch of people and a bunch of resellers and all this stuff on a more public platform, you have to take these extra steps to join in. And they just like this community. They just want a community, and that is the real key behind building a fandom, is giving this opportunity to engage with other people with similar interests. Because as we know, it's hard to find people in regular life that want to talk about your Kylo Ray fanfiction or whatever,
or your reverse harem set in a college town where,
or that, right? Or that. Like you can have your tattoo and somebody might be like, hey, you have to have your secret language. But yeah, so that is the thing. Mm-hmm.
That was a lot of really great information. And it was also a lot of actionable information. So we appreciate that as well. Because neither Leslie nor I read reverse harem. I forgot to compliment you when reverse harem started to get really popular. I was like, "What is this?" And one of my friends who I really respect in the industry was like, "Read Angel Lawson." Hadn't met you before, didn't know who you were. She's read Angel Lawson. It was the Raven.
That was my first series. Yeah.
She's like, "This woman understands the assignment. Read her." And I was like, "Oh, I understand."
Try, man. This is that reverse harem is really weird because y'all, I don't read reverse harem or bully. I am that person that does not ascribe to you read the genre that you write. What I do is I read mostly at this point contemporary romance.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I first of all, this is such a dark world that it's too much. Yeah. And I don't really want to be influenced by so much of the stuff going on out there. We really try, as crazy as it sounds, we really try not to be gratuitous in our dark content. we sort of do this thing where we're like, who is the character and how far would they go? And then what's the line they would cross? And I'm afraid if I read too much other, I would be like, either like, oh, we already did that, or oh, we should top that, or I don't want to get into that. But my dark content is basically true crime. There's enough.
That is pretty dark. I can't watch true crime because it's got me scared in my apartment, like checking the doors every 5 minutes to make sure everything is locked. Like I can't do it anymore.
This is my daughter. She's the same way. She is like, she's a door. She's in this old house and there's a door in her bedroom that leads outside. And she's like, I already have the murder door.
Right? I would freak me out.
She has a dog. She has a dog that sleeps in her room with her. Good. But yeah, no, I don't read. I read, but because here's the thing. I was listening to y'all talking to, who was it? Oh my gosh.
Dora, Becca, Sasha.
I guess it was Becca. You know, we're talking about beats and everything. Mm-hmm. So I get all of my beats from basic romance. Mm-hmm. Because at heart, this is where people get confused. At heart, your dark romance is a romance first. And your dark elements are layered on top of it. Mm-hmm. So if you don't get that romance right, it's not gonna ever hit right. So when you're talking about like how do you get them to cooperate? Well, your forced proximity is a romance trope, and your one bed is a romance trope, and you're having to do this or that or what, you know what I mean? They're all romance tropes inside there. They just have this like twist on top. So the more I read regular romance, the more I understand those beats, and then the more it's easier for me to balance out that that side. And then I send it to Sam, and then she gets it all dirtied up. So yeah,
it sounds like the perfect relationship.
Yeah. So all righty, that was my last.
Angel,
that was my last tip.
Yeah, that was a great tip. Thank you so much for giving all. So Angel, Leslie and I love to talk about what we've been reading or watching that's really kind of tickling our fantasy. Anything happening with you that's tickling your fancy?
So I've been rewatching Seinfeld for the first time in a long, long time. And I feel like I'm looking at it through sort of different eyes, maybe, than I mean, obviously, I watched it when it came out. I'm that old. And then I've seen it in reruns here and there, you know, over the years. But I had not really watched it in a long time. And it's out on Netflix. And so I just started watching it basically from the beginning. And I think what I like about it is that it's very even over all the seasons. Like, if you go back to a show like Friends, when you're watching it, you're like, ugh. The breakup time.
Oh yeah, okay.
Or, this part where Phoebe's pregnant, or oh, I don't like this stuff with this Emily, right? And you know, like these different things, and it's sort of like it becomes like a little draggy. But Seinfeld's not really like that. Like there's no periods of time really. Like the only one I can really kind of cling to is when George is engaged. But that's just so bizarre that this isn't going to work anyway, so it doesn't matter. And so I like it because I'm just like, every episode is just this really self-contained little episode while always revealing more and more about these characters. And the whole big scandal of Seinfeld was their season finale with how they go to prison because they're terrible people. They're just really awful people. They are really awful people. Right? And I really, really see it now that like they are hilariously terrible, terrible people. They're terrible to one another. They're terrible to everyone around them. They encourage each other's terrible behavior. It was
it dovetail with what you write. It's like you can get, fodder for your bullies.
Yeah, they're terrible, right? People are terrible. So anyway, I've just enjoyed it. I don't know why. It's just like this. I don't know. I think also I really like watching a show where no one has cell phones. And so when they're having like this oh no, does George know that this is happening?
I've got to run talk to him.
Nobody can tell him. It's just gonna happen. There's no GPS. They might get lost. There's no GPS. There's no
print out
cell
MapQuest.
phones. They're like, all they have to just sit there and watch the TV show when the TV show comes on. I don't know. I kind of like it. Everything is like easier yet a little harder, and I enjoy it.
Retro, remembering those days before cell phones, before DVR.
Because you think it. You go, why don't they just call them? Oh, they can't.
Simpler times.
Why don't they take a picture? They can't. They don't have a camera.
They have to go develop the film. It takes 5 to 7 days or 2 weeks or whatever.
It's kind of nice. It's kind of like weirdly refreshing. Yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff.
So that's what I'm watching. My 30-year-old TV show. It holds up.
Right?
Wow, it is 30.
Yeah. So Inez, what are you reading or watching that you would like to share?
It's your fault, as it always is, Leslie. Leslie sent me a text about you have to watch the rest of Tessa saga. I was like, I'm not watching some TikTok 7 hours plus.
I read a synopsis of it because I watched every day. Too lazy to watch.
And I watched because my mom sent me a text about, have you seen this? And I started and I was like, I'm not watching this 5 to 7 hour TikTok. Of course, like everyone says
30 minutes.
It's 7 hours. Oh my gosh. No, I read a synopsis. I'm sure it's way better to watch.
I've watched every single solitary 10, and so did Leslie, 10-minute TikTok, and was gasping and clutching my pearls and calling out to people and texting Leslie like, I can't believe. So if you don't know what this is, we'll leave a link in the show notes. If you don't know what this is, this woman, she back in right before COVID, she goes on an online, she's gone a date for someone that she met online, and it's called Who the Bleep Did I Marry? That's the name of the series. And she's uncovering for you all the things she found out about her ex-husband starting the day that she married him up into their divorce.
Well, before she actually married him.
She was not listening to her. It starts. She was not listening to her intuition.
The reason why millions and millions of people have watched this is because it's a woman sitting in her car, in her bedroom, with her rollers and her wig, like telling the story. And I told Inez that she is a storytelling savant. This woman is not a writer, to the best of my knowledge. She had like a regular job, but she understands something about oral storytelling that have had millions and millions and millions of people watching 7 hours of her talking.
7 hours and 38 minutes.
Telling this story that we all were just captivated by. And there's something that you can learn about storytelling. I don't know what it is, but I feel like there's something to be learned.
Well, I can tell you that when I saw #Atlanta, not a surprise. And the other part of this is I love the show Catfish, and Atlanta is notorious for being like #1 zone for catfish. So so the red flags on this one were like all over.
I agree. Atlanta, especially for Black people, like Atlanta has something like 25 million Black women for every one straight Black man. Like it's impossible. So if you found a good man in Atlanta, I don't know. I'm sorry.
It's a lot. So no, I wasn't surprised. And again, like I love Catfish. I watch it with my kids. It's like their cautionary tale to not end up in this situation.
Right.
I used to live in Atlanta. I don't know if I told you that. I used to live in Atlanta, and the first
not far from me.
Yeah, I lived in DeKalb, and the first thing that Ressa Tessa says is on her way to this online date, she gets a flat tire, which happens so often in Atlanta. So that's when I was like, yeah, this is real. This story is real. But so she's like, that should have been my first warning.
That was God trying to tell her, don't go on this date. Yeah. We could find a recap also, because very few people, if you haven't already watched the 7.5 hours.
Watch all 7.5 hours. I promise you. You will not know where this is going.
You won't regret it. I mean, I did it on like double speed, so that I listened to everything on double speed, so it didn't take that long.
It's still 3 hours.
It's still a chunk. But I was watching.
Worth it.
I was driving everywhere. Everything I was doing,
like on blogs, and like I was seeing it like all over the place on like my other media. You know what I mean? Like not even like TikTok media. It was like my gossip blogs and this and that, and you
couldn't get away from it.
But then I saw someone on Reddit did a summary, and I was like, okay, this is what I need for 7 hours and watch this. So,
Yeah, so that's what I have been complete. And then I was like, it needs to be, because I spent so much time. It was a book. It was a book. So I needed to get credit for it on my Goodreads.
Oh, it was the equivalent of a book. Yeah, yeah. And someone added it to Goodreads. I was like, did they novelize this? But it's not. It's just a fake novelization so that you can get credit for your Goodreads if you've listened to this saga.
She's gonna get a movie deal or a
I'm
TV
sure she
deal
will.
out of this.
Absolutely.
Hopefully.
If that Zola Twitter story got a movie deal, she's getting a movie deal.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. She needs that. She needs something.
She's getting a trip to London.
To London
Oh, yeah.
and Paris, which she completely deserves.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that whole
We're
thing is
taking
just
an L for all of us.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I read or watched and enjoyed.
For me, I've been consumed by Dune over the past weekend. As we're recording this, I have just seen Dune. I watched the first one on Saturday. I went to the theater to see Dune Part 2 in IMAX on Sunday. I'm going to rewatch the David Lynch because as much as I don't want to, I was advised by a very close friend that
not me.
Another very close friend that I had to rewatch the David Lynch version. And I'm as a film student, as a former film student, there is a special place in my heart for David Lynch and his movies that make no sense. So I'm going to dive back
I'm not a big David Lynch fan either. No, I have walked out of them before.
He's tough.
Can I do this?
He's tough. I was a Twin Peaks stan though.
I did like Twin Peaks. I did like Twin Peaks, and I think I was like, okay, I can do this. No. That was the TV version.
Right. TV. That was the most palatable David Lynch has ever been. Yeah, it still made very little sense.
No. I've never watched Dune. I don't know. I don't do any Dune at all. Like that was something that just bypassed me entirely. And I haven't been able to bring myself to commit to it.
If you do, the first one is amazing. It's this filmmaking is just mind-blowing. Even if I highly recommend.
I'm sure I would like it. Sometimes things are just like not in my thing, and I struggle to push out. And I don't know, my husband's not really into, I'm surprised he hasn't been into it to kind of encourage it, but he didn't seem into it either. So
if you ever get the bug, I do recommend it.
I'll try it. I might try it. I need to. Yeah. Well, that was a good one.
Yeah. So before we go, please tell our listeners where they can find you and your books, Angel.
Well, you can find me on Amazon. I'm Amazon exclusive. We have a website for all of our books and merch, and we just opened a new shop, which is more merch than books at the moment. And that's forsythu.com. And you can find my Facebook group at Monarchs, Angel Lawson and Samantha Rue, and which, by the way, is themed with the books,
of course,
and using our branding. And then I'm on the other social medias as well.
Well, that's where you can find our girl, Angel. And Leslie and I would like to thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode. Please let us know what you think. You can leave a comment on YouTube with your thoughts on the episode. Share it with a friend who loves romance or bully romance. Please rate and review us on Apple's Podcast or Spotify.
And you can always check out our book schedule on our website so you can continue reading along the Side Changeling series with us. That's at inkandmagic.net. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.